Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Simisola Atiku. In recent times, Nigeria has been greatly challenged by disturbing security situations such as terrorism, insurgency, banditry, kidnapping, among others. Just recently, an unspecified number of military personnel were confirmed or reported missing in a recent ambush by Boko Haram terrorists in Baga on the fringes of Lake Chad. The soldiers were reportedly ambushed while trying to recover the dead bodies of 40 residents, that's fishermen and farmers, who were killed by insurgents while they were ambushed. Several soldiers were also shot dead in the gun battle that ensued. The defense headquarters has now linked the recent surge in these terrorist activities in Nigeria's northeast and northwest regions to the influx of foreign fighters from the Sahel region. Speaking at this year's maiden military press briefing, the Director of Defense Media Operations, Edward Buba, revealed that these foreign fighters are reinforcing local terrorist groups aided by collaborators who act as informants. He acknowledged that troops have recorded attacks in Damboa, Chibok, and the Gwaza town of Borno State in recent times, but reiterated the commitment of the military to combat terrorists and their collaborators to ensure a safe Nigeria. Here's a part of what Buba said at the briefing.
It is clear that in recent times there have been some form of resurgence in terror attacks, particularly in the northwest and in the northeast. These resurgent attacks have taken place. It started with Kareto last year in Borno State. Then we've had attacks on Sabongari, as well as Wajiroko, which are in Damboa local government area of Borno State. We've also recorded attacks in Chibok and Goza local government area of Borno State, as well as attacks in Gudu, Ilela, Isa, and some locations in the northwest. I would say that the resurgence of these attacks by these terrorists are attributable to influx of foreign fighters that come in as reinforcement for these terrorists. These foreign fighters are from the Sahelian region, and this situation is made worse by local collaborators that form a support base for these terrorists. They serve as informants reporting on troops' movement to the terrorists. However, in spite of this situation, troops are profoundly conscious of their role and responsibility in ending insurgency and terrorism across our nation. Though we might record occasional tactical setbacks, our strategic objective remains unhindered.
Buba assured Nigerians that the military's strategic objective is to break the terrorists' will to fight by targeting their key assets, including logistics, administrative structures, and combat capabilities. Frankly, this challenge is quite worrisome. I'm joined on the program by the CEO, Traz Intelligence and Security Solutions Limited, Temitope Olodo. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Now, this recent surge in terrorist activities in the nation's northeast and northwest regions is quite worrisome, especially as they are being reinforced by foreign fighters.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think for many Nigerians that have been following this trend, they're quite aware that as far back as 2019, the cost of relative cost of terrorism to Nigeria economy is almost 2.4%. And we know from recent statistics reviewed, by MBS that terrorism insecurity is costing Nigeria a lot of money, even to the extent that we have to allocate a large chunk of our money, which we are borrowing, into resolving the issue of terrorism. But I'm not surprised by the what you call revelation, by the military hierarchy. The fact is that we always known that terrorism is being fed from the Sahel simply because there have never been a decision by government to establish what you call a containment strategy. So, and if you remember, the good book says that he that leaves his house clean will invite more evil into that house. So if you clean up, if you say you deal with the terrorists and you're not putting in place, authorities or civilian authorities or engagement with communities to ensure that those places are safe, then what you have is that they will come back in full force. And that is what we're having. So even though we have gained some momentums in dealing with terrorism in Nigeria, the fact is that those momentum are being defeated by the fact that those people are coming back. Our borders are porous. There's no check. So as a result, people could come in and go out willingly, as we could see in the Southwest, where we have another terrorist group raising their head. So it's a serious concern that many Nigerians should take notice of.
Now, over the years, insecurity has become a huge challenge in the country, especially terrorism and banditry. But so far, why do you think the northern region has become a hotbed for these criminal elements to thrive? And it's even worse now that, foreign insurgents are behind these recent attacks.
Unfortunately, a lot of money is being invested into addressing the issue of terrorism challenges that we have in Nigeria. But you can't, yourself, me, or many Nigerians cannot account for those money. There is no implementation plan. We have different interventions that are happening, but those interventions are not interlinked. And when they're not interlinked, there is no way you could measure success. I listened to the Chief of Defense Staff recently talking about 120,000 people being captured or giving themselves out, to the military, and yet 60% of those or 60,000 are minors. The others were sent to Gombe. How many were sent to Gombe? Is it 10,000, 30,000, 30,000? How do we measure that those people have no return back? And the newspaper is awash with people that are being de-radicalized by the Nigerian military going back, stealing weapons and going back to the terrorist group. So there is no measurement, and that is the problem we have. We need to have a comprehensive counter-terrorism strategy that is people-driven, and not only people-driven, but which we can measure the implementation. Without that, we have a problem. And this government, the government of President Tinubu, as with all the good intention in the world, we fail to address the issue of terrorism if they continue to rely on the approach that they are adopting presently. My suggestion to the president on this matter is very simple. Similar to what President Buhari did, where not only did he have the Economic Council, but he also brought together the Dangotes of this world, or the Teller of this world, and bring them together to advise him on economic issues and to advise on the way to improve Nigerian economy. The President Tinubu, also needs to do a similar thing to create an independent think tank outside the military, outside the police, who are experts in the field of counterterrorism to advise on the way to address this issue. Otherwise, just like I said over 10 years ago, when we were talking about the issue of terrorism, that this issue of terrorism will stay with us for 20 years. And here we are since 2009, we're still going to 2029, and we've not been able to get rid of it. We can't get rid of it except we put in place certain interventions to address this menace. And this cannot be done by our wishy-washy approach to addressing terrorism challenges.
And quite a number of experts believe that this violent escalation indicates a failure of the current security measures in the country. That's despite reported efforts by the government to ensure safety, just like you earlier mentioned. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's important to highlight that the military are doing a lot. A lot of our men and women are losing their life on the battlefield. So to say that they are not doing anything, it's not right. But the challenge we have is that in this modern warfare, it's not about having what they call big tanks or having big planes. We've seen that from lessons from Israel fighting Hezbollah and fighting Hamas. We've seen the way they've dealt with them. And those are the kind of takeaways that the military need to grow. The military is a bit sluggish in their strategy because they are military. That's the way big institutions operate. But when you bring in innovative minds, people that know about how to do, I've never heard the military saying, oh, we are recruiting for drone specialists. We are recruiting for, because all they're doing now is that they're flying planes into areas and killing innocent people, not intentionally, I must state, but they have challenges. We've not heard anything about how much we are giving to the intelligence elements to try and find out who are these people, how are we going to deal with them. We're voting a lot of money to these individuals. Nobody have ever been called to question to ask how much have we been giving to the intelligence cycle to get intelligence on this matter, and how much have they spent? We don't know. We don't know how much we've been spending on de-radicalization. We don't know. If you want to deal with Boko Haram today, let me give you the Nigerian government and the military a free intervention. Try and stop the recruitment by Boko Haram. If you reduce Boko Haram recruitment by just 30% alone, then the ones you deal with or you kill in the battlefront, they will not be able to recruit more. But as you are killing one, they are recruiting another 5-6 people. And you're saying you're dealing with them. It's not going to be possible. We're going to continue fighting this war until 2032 if we are not putting in place the right intervention. And the military do not have the only solution. The solution lies with community intervention, bringing in private experts from around the world, Nigerians that have the skill set, both within Nigeria and outside Nigeria, that could advise the government and provide a different perspective, what we call the helicopter view on this issue. Because the way we are going about it, we are not going to win this war. We're going to continue to win this war in the technical term, which we say we technically defeated them, but we've not actually removed them. And many countries have achieved this. What has Morocco done successfully? What has the UK done successfully? Before, they used to be bombing all over in the UK. Now it stopped. You hardly hear about that bombing. What have they done? When has the Nigerian military and the people that are sitting on this issue sat down to ask themselves, what has UK done? What has this country done differently? What have we not done? And compare notes. But all they do is go to meetings and come back and say, we're doing this, we're doing that, but we're not really seeing the impact on the ground. That is the challenge we have.
Okay. Now, another challenge is, you mentioned moves should be put into ensuring that Boko Haram stops the recruitment. How can this, what's the approach to stop this from happening? And then the DHQ also mentioned that they have collaborators who are supplying information on the troops' move and actions. How is this even possible? How do we stop, or how can the Nigerian military stop the recruitment of new members?
There are different ways and different interventions that could be put in place, but I think it's important for your viewers to understand that in every war situation or every conflict situation, there are conflict entrepreneurs. So people that will sell pepper, people that will sell oranges, people that will sell petrol, people that will sell weapons. Those people are always there. So what you need to do then is to say, what are the 5 things that is fueling this crisis? How do we stop it? Except you sit down to actually map it out. It's going to be impossible. So we've not actually sat down to say, okay, these people are coming from where? Where are these people coming from? Are they coming from Chad? Are they coming from Cameroon? Are they coming from? If we know that they are not coming in from Benin, that means that our security in Benin might be a bit reduced in terms of those kind of measures to stop people being able to bring things in that fuel this crisis. And with all due respect, we know how the Biafra war was stopped. We know what certain intervention was put in place to ensure that the other side did not get kind of things that fuel them or give them the power to do it. So if we were able to do that over 30, 40 years ago, why is those kind of mechanisms not put in place now? People that do not learn from history are people that will become victims of history. There are different initiatives that could be put in place. But if you're a military man, all you're thinking about is going into the war, going with your army, going with water. They don't have the time and the luxury of time to sit down and do their proper mapping. And that's the problem they have. But when you bring in other minds that could throw in other initiatives and suggestions, then they could look at it with a clear mind and say, okay, yes, we'll bring this in. We've talked about recruitment issue. We've not talked about socio-economic issues in the North. So we need to find a way to pump in money into the North to help the youth so that they are not vulnerable to the attraction from those terrorist groups. Those are the ways in which you stop, them being recruited by them. But not only that, what about values? What is our value? A military man enters into a plane, a U.S. military man enters into the plane in the States, and everybody stands and clap for them. They're able to get food, and people clap for them. People respect them. Is our military respected up to that level? What are we doing to create that relationship between the military and the civilians? For the civilians to see them that they are their friends. We saw what happened in Sokoto. I lived in Sokoto for many years. In fact, I went to university in Sokoto. But we know that Sokoto, as a Sokoto state, is a ground for violence extremism. There's a lot of people that have violence radicalization there. What are we doing to stem that in the schools to ensure that our youth are not being groomed from when they are in school? What are we doing? So we're not doing enough. Even if when we are doing them, they are not linked up. What is the Ministry of Education doing to stop radicalization? What is the military doing to stop radicalization? Why should it be the military identifying the people to be radicalized, de-radicalized, the military releasing those people, and the military saying that those people, no, they are the ones in charge of everything. They should not be. And what are the state government doing to address people that are being given to them? Or are they just throwing them back into the community so that they could be radicalized again? So there's a lot of faces to it, but the military cannot do it alone. They need everybody else involved. And that's why the National Security Advisor needs to take this by the horn, bring in private individuals, organizations that could help the military and other institutions that are working in this field to create a more comprehensive strategy and implementation. There is a strategy in place, but that strategy is not being effectively monitored and evaluated, and that is where the biggest challenge is.
Mr. Temitope Olodo will definitely continue this conversation right after this break. Do stay with us. We'll return. The program will return shortly. Welcome back to the program. We're still discussing a recent revelation by the Defense Headquarters that foreign insurgents are behind the recent attacks in Nigeria's northeast and northwest. I'm still with security expert and consultant, Mr. Temitope Olodo. Thank you very much for staying with us. So you mentioned that, well, we spoke earlier about radicalization, or rather you mentioned radicalization in your previous response. Now my question is it even necessary to radicalize these terrorists who claim that, they are repented, and is it a good idea to reabsorb them into the society?
There's a misconception on the issue of de-radicalization. The issue is that de-radicalization should be for people that have not yet crossed the threshold line, and there are criteria that are put in place to address that. So, for example, if somebody says, I love Boko Haram, I want to be a member of Boko Haram, they've not actually committed a serious criminal offense. They might have said that because they've got grievances against the state. It might be because they have mental issues. It might be a misinterpretation of religion or faith. Those kind of individuals should be available for the de-radicalization process, and they should should be taken through the process and then de-radicalize and absorb back into the community because they've not really committed an offense. But when somebody has been reported or recorded to have committed a crime against individuals against the state, in the first instance, they must go through the court process, the justice process, and when they are found guilty, when they are in prison, that is the time when you de-radicalize them, to make them a valuable member of the community when they are due to be released. You understand? Because some people will be released on license because they've not because they need to be released on license, and then they will be monitored and all those things. So those are the two types. It's not that people just say, "Oh, I surrender," and then automatically you take them, you don't de-radicalize them, you add them to the military, or people say, "Oh, I've surrendered, I'm no longer a member of Boko Haram," and then you take them and you absorb them back to community. It doesn't work that way. If they've committed an offense, then they need to be dealt with, under the law. There are very strict law of terrorism and how these people need to be dealt with. And that's the problem again that we have in Nigeria, where people have been locked up for months and even years and not gone through the system. That was why you saw the incident in Kuje prison, I think so, where in Abuja, where a lot of them were released, or where they had a jailbreak. So those kind of things. So we must try and avoid that. But one of the ways to try and avoid that process is to ensure that people, if they are caught or if they surrender, they go through that process very quickly, whether they are going to prison or, they are going to be released if there's no offense against, nothing found, that they've not been found wanting, and go through the de-radicalization process.
Now, finally, a really baffling question, which I believe every Nigerian wants to know, is why is it so difficult to ensure the safety of the nation's borders, to ensure that these foreign insurgents, are not allowed free entry into the country?
There's a very simple answer to that. Nigeria is not the only country in the world with very large border, if that's the word we want to use. But Nigeria need to embed technology in the process of, there's some places where it is water. So there's nothing you could do there, you just need to have patrol. In the UK, we have borders that is like between France and the UK, where there's land and there's water. And that's why you've been hearing about the stories of, people trying to cross over the channel into the UK. Different border will require different approach. But again, it's about our having a more inclusive approach on dealing with our border challenges. There's some of our borders that we really, really need to have people manage. There's some of them that we need technology to assist us with. And there's some of them that we only need to just put environmental structures in there to help to make it difficult for people to be able to cross over. But in our borders where we are bordering with countries where we know we have people that have terrorist intentions and bad intentions towards us, then those are the areas where we need to really concentrate our plans and strategy to ensure that people do not come in. Like, for example, there's no reason for you to put terrorist, anti-terrorist police and whatever around the Lagos, Benin Republic area, because terrorists, to be honest, terrorists are not coming through there. What you have there are smugglers. So it's a different approach that you adopt. So those are the kind of things. And while we are talking about this, part of the challenges we have is that we also need to decentralize our prison system. We need to have private prisons. That's the thing that I'm hoping that the Minister of Interior will be looking into. In the life of this administration, they bring in private prisons so that you are not mixing all kind of people together. Because when you are mixing terrorists with normal people that just committed an offense of stealing goat or stealing 1 naira or 2 naira. Then what you're having is you're having a breeding gag for terrorists. So we need to really look at our security infrastructure completely. And the border security issue is a very key issue that Nigerians want to know more about, and that the government holds them a duty to explain what we are doing to secure our borders.
Mr. Temitope, thank you very much for lending your thoughts. Thank you for showing up on the program. We appreciate your contributions. That was the CEO, Trans Intelligence and Security Solutions Limited, Mr. Temitope Olodo. Well, that's it on this episode of the program. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.